it's been a really interesting evening seeing a couple of partners for sovereign AI supplier in Europe is really important. Because I think the challenge in Europe in general is making the sovereign story real. We talk a lot in Europe about sovereignty, but actually the reality of the sovereignty ends up being missing a lot of the time. And what we saw tonight was a set of companies who are creating the infrastructure for sovereignty, as well as the software for sovereignty, to enable European organizations, be they public sector or private sector, to consume services and build applications on services that are genuinely sovereign, end to end. And it was a really good evening from that perspective. Yeah, you should have told me that before.
Round two. All right. Thanks again for joining us at the first SambaHouse with Infercom. It's been great here. Can you talk about a recap of the evening, what was really exciting, and why we're excited to be partnering with Infercom as SambaNova?
So it was really fun. We saw Infercom describe how sovereign AI is incredibly important for Europe, particularly from an infrastructure perspective. And then we saw, their partners talk about how they're building software layers on top of sovereign infrastructure to enable European organizations to actually build sovereign AI applications. That's really cool, particularly because, Europe talks a lot about the importance of sovereignty, but talks a lot less about the reality of making sovereign applications using AI. So yeah, it was a great evening.
One of the things at SambaNova that we really pride ourselves on is the energy efficiency and the efficiency of our chip to deliver AI. Can you talk a little bit about how that unlocks sovereign AI for providers like Infercom that are getting spun up, and why that's so important to really enable the next wave of sovereign inference in Europe?
So it's super important in Europe. I mean, we're in Europe, we're across the continent. There's huge amounts of investment and effort going into decarbonizing electricity generation. And, one of the consequences of that is that, electricity isn't necessarily easy to come by. We're not just going to stand up a coal plant to produce the electricity for AI inference. And so using SambaNova hardware allows Infercom to deploy in the data centers that exist, not in the data centers and the power infrastructure that we wish existed. So as a partnership, it works incredibly well. We have both the SambaNova ability to deliver power efficient infrastructure, plus Infercom's ability to deliver not just European sited infrastructure, which any hyperscaler can do, but European owned infrastructure, which organizations like the partners we saw tonight can then build on. Is fantastic.
That's great. Last question is around the use cases. We saw many of the partner use cases that are out there. Are there any that stand out, especially that require even more sovereign inference in Europe that are exciting and that you're excited to see deployed on the Infercom platform?
So I think one of the interesting things about the last 3 years, it all happens very, very quickly, is the way that European enterprise in general has become very comfortable with cloud as a way of operating. But I think what's happened in particularly the last 6 months, but more generally in the last couple of years, is a real sense that European sovereignty has to become real. And that applies particularly within the regulated industries, like healthcare, finance, but it also applies in the public sector. And for the public sector, some of the greatest advantages from AI are available. You know, wherever you have a bureaucratic process, you have an opportunity to allow AI to, or use AI, I should say, to make it more effective.